This morning, President Obama begins a week-long tour of Asia where he'll visit 4 countries. The president's first stop is Tokyo, Japan, followed by South Korea, Malaysia, and the Philippines. So joining us to discuss the significance of Mr. Obama's trip is Jamie Metzel, Senior Fellow at the Asia Society, which is a nonprofit organization focused on educating the world about Asia. Thanks for joining us.
Sure.
So let's talk about this trip, which was postponed because of the government shutdown in October. Now they're back online. How important is this trip to Asia?
It's critically important to Asia and critically important to the United States. Asia is becoming the most important region of the world for the United States. The second and third largest economies in the world are there. With the rise of China, there are major strategic and geopolitical issues, and everything is now coming to a head on trade, on the military balance, on all kinds of things. And President Obama, who missed the very important trip to Asia last year, missed two Asian summits that were very important, and there was a lot of talk has America disengaged from Asia? And this trip is about saying America has been in Asia for 100 years, more than 100 years. We're going to be there for the next 100 years, and we're showing up. And that's the message that the president's delivering.
And the first stop is Tokyo, right? Japan. We had a very high-profile posting there. Caroline Kennedy, the new ambassador. I'm sure that's significant. What's on the agenda in Japan?
Well, there's 2 very important issues between the United States and Japan. First, America is supporting our longtime ally, Japan, who is facing incredible levels of aggression from China. As China reforms economically, they're trying to divert attention to a lot of nationalist posing, both in the South China Sea and in the East China Sea, which it shares with Japan. So Japan is feeling very insecure. Its Prime Minister, Shinzo Abe, has announced a major economic reform platform, in part to help bring the quote-unquote animal spirits back to Japan, to stand up to China. But to do that, they need greater trade with the United States. And so the United States and Japan and 10 other countries are negotiating a thing called the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which will be a free trade agreement of the Asia-Pacific of a very high level. The United States and Japan are currently negotiating the terms of that treaty, and it's going to take President Obama and Prime Minister Abe to sit down and really try to bring this thing to the next level, and that'll be very, very important for Japan.
That sounds like a big deal. What about the rest of the region? What does he hope to accomplish?
Well, first is he needs to make a statement that this rebalancing towards Asia is real. There's a lot of fear of China by pretty much everybody outside of China, and the United States needs to deliver this message saying we're here, we're rebalancing over time our military forces, we're saying that trade is going to be very important, that we're going to protect free navigation, that our markets are going to be open, and we need to make a statement that's the positive side of the statement, which is that the United States supports free navigation and a rules-based system and everything this country has stood for the past 70 years. That's the positive message. But on the negative side, China is just being very, very aggressive, and China in the South China Sea, and we will talk about the Philippines maybe in a moment, is just saying, well, we don't really care about international law. We don't care about the international convention, the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. Might makes right. And the U.S. is saying, well, wait a second, we and our allies are going to stand up for a system that has allowed and will allow China to rise peacefully, but that doesn't mean that we're going to stand by and let anybody be bullied.
Right. So clearly China is going to be a big part of the conversation, but he's not visiting China.
Well, you don't have to visit every country. I mean, let's imagine you have relatives in a bunch of different places. You don't have to visit every relative on every trip. He's going to go to China later in this year. He's had lots of meetings with President Xi, and he will continue to do so. But the trip, even though he's not going to China, the trip in many ways is about China, because China is the biggest story in Asia, and China is rising, and it's wonderful that China is rising, and there are all kinds of great things of helping global growth, but there are big questions, and China is rising in a way that's challenging at least the existing order. And the United States is trying to deliver a message to China saying, if you want to rise peacefully and collaboratively and in support of international rules and norms, we're here and we'll engage with you. But if you don't, then we're going to work with all of our allies around the region to try to stand up to that.
It certainly seems like a delicate dance, Jamie, because China is also an ally too. I mean,
they're not an ally. I mean, they're certainly a partner in many ways. I mean, we have our allies in Asia, which are Korea, Japan, and the Philippines and Thailand. But we need to work with China. I mean, China, we want them to be our friends, and in some ways they are our friends. We have a great trading relationship, but on the security side, there are a lot of questions, and China has stated its desire to push the United States out to the Western Pacific. And that's very dangerous for us, but it's more dangerous for our allies. And that's why there's so many people are so nervous, and they want to hear from Obama that the United States is here and we're going to support our allies and friends.
All right, Jamie Metzl, Senior Fellow at the Asia Society. Thank you so much.
Anytime.